Hello everybody, welcome back to the Fatherhood Experience, the first episode of 2024. Hopefully everybody is doing well. My name is Dr. D, the Fatherhood Practitioner, CEO and founder of Dad's Doing It. Today we are back at Famous Barbershop to have the conversation of the Fatherhood Experience. I'm going to kick it around to the fathers that are with me right now to introduce themselves.
Derek Johnson, Realtor, father of two.
Ismael Santiago, retail management, father of 6, 1 grandson.
Thomas Hampton, Realtor, father of 1.
Junior Bennett, barber at Famous Barbershop.
Hello everybody, again, today we are talking about what I call the grit of fatherhood. This is our first episode of 2024. We've been away from you guys for a little while dealing with our own experience with fatherhood, and we're here to have a conversation about what does it mean about the grit of fatherhood. I define grit as you're in the trenches, you're dealing with it every day, but you're looking forward for solutions and how to deal with the things that go along with fatherhood. So I don't know what that means to all of you guys, but what does grit of fatherhood mean to you all?
I think, one of the first things I learned with becoming a parent was there's no blueprint.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing. We're just trying our best. And I think sometimes, I'll speak for myself, I think sometimes I can get caught up in the whole, am I doing it right? Did I make that right decision? Or even dwelling on some of the mistakes that you made, kind of going through that mental warfare, figuring out if you're doing it right. I know there's no right way, but that question always pops into my head, and whether, am I handling this the right way? Because again, there's no blueprint, so,
It's tough because I think some of the things, especially for me, again, I can only speak from a subjective viewpoint, but I think we kind of share some similarities here, is that like the grit of every day of being like that point person and then dealing with the struggles that come along with that. You know what I'm saying? Like one of the struggles I'm having right now is dealing with my son, whereas like he's 12, I'm trying to let him find his own way, but then we're butting heads a little bit in terms of like the music he wants to listen to, the style clothing that he wants to wear. I'm trying to sit back, but I know how those things can be perceived out in the world, and I'm trying to always be aware of that to make sure that he's not being perceived the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the battles that I'm having right now.
What are one of the battles, like specifically with what he's wearing, for example?
So, he just the way he wants to wear, like, the hoodies.
Yeah.
Always seem to have a hoodie on.
Yeah.
And sometimes out there it's not perceived as well.
Yeah.
You
So, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Please
right
do.
Now. Look how you dress now.
Yeah.
Is that how you dressed when you were 12? How do we dress when we were 12?
That's true. That's very true. But I don't know, man. I look at it differently. You know what I'm saying? I look at it differently, where like you're going to be judged by what you have on, and what I have on right now. When I'm out there past people, yeah, they're probably judging me, but I don't want them to judge him.
Yeah.
I don't want them to judge him.
Yeah.
Like I'm there to protect him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Not to let the judgment happen.
But just keep in mind, your protection may also come across as discouragement of hope, like his openness.
That's what I'm getting right now.
And everything. So you got to let his, let's say his creativity come out. And if it hoodies his creativity, he's not harming anybody with that. I know for me, for example, look how I'm dressed today. This is how I dress for work. But back when I was 12, it was baggy jeans, baggy. The shirts were, I remember going to Foot Locker to get 2X tall tees. I am not tall. But that doesn't, how I dressed then didn't define who I am today.
But we all know that people's perception of you becomes their own reality. You know what I'm saying?
I'm a firm believer in that.
As a father, I think for all of us in the room, we shield our children.
Yes.
And I'm trying to shield my kids as much as possible, but still allow them to be authentic in their own sketch. And that's hard. That's hard for me to do right now. Very hard for me.
Yeah.
And I'm having a hard time trying to balance with that. So when I say grit, it's like grit dealing with that, but also having the mindset of, okay, this is how it's going to look. You know what I'm saying? Being able to understand both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, this entire conversation, you know, it's full circle, right? Because, you know, like I didn't.
We went to high school together dressed like this.
Well, yeah, and,
Yeah.
and actually, funny enough, like when I was a senior in high school, like I remember, like this is closer to what I wore in high school as a senior, as opposed to, you know, is what you were saying, right? Like that. Yeah, it's style, right? Like that's. I've just been like, my dad was you know, he would go down to what is it, Saks?
Yeah.
Or Shacks.
Shacks.
Yeah. On
Main Street.
on Main Street,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Right. So he was there, right, and he had, even though he was in academia, like, you know, he had the blazers with the you know, the cashmere
Elbow cap.
on the yeah. I was like, that was my dad, right?
Yeah.
But also on the weekend, you know, he had you know, neon pink windbreaker shorts with a neon yellow like hat, and
Nice.
like that was like, my dad could wear anything, right? And so I got a lot of fashion influences from him, and I just happen to like, you know, when he dressed up to the nines, it was like, that's cool, right? Like that's what I want to do. But at the same time, it's like I remember vividly, like, you know, having conversations about NWA and you know, like and Dre, and like, cause I was West Coast with music before I was East Coast, right?
Okay,
So,
okay.
So I was on Warren G, Snoop, Dre before I was on
Warren G
Biggie
was that dude though.
and
Warren G was
Nas.
that dude.
Warren G was like
That's that dude.
Nate, Regulate G Funk Era
Yeah.
was the first CD that I bought with my own money. Like, I asked for CDs, and obviously my parents said no, because, you know, they saw the big parental advisory in the corner. And so the first CD I ever bought was G Funk Era.
Yeah.
And I remember I played that, like, I still know front to back. That's, you know, one of the 5 CDs that I know still, like, front to back, every single word. And a lot of, in all honesty, one of the main reasons why I was in love with that CD was because in What I See, track number 2, the last, like, half of it, he just drops the F-bomb like 9 straight times. And I was in love with that. I was like, yo, he swears so much. And so that was like, that's why I bought that album. It turns out, you know, it's an all-timer, but that was just like the side of it, right? So I think that experience is just part of it. Like, you know what I mean?
Part of growing up, coming of age.
And on the dad side, it's like, yeah, like all these experiences and all these feelings that you're talking about, you know, our folks, our guardians, all had the exact same conversations going on inside their head, right? And I think part of that grit that you were talking about is just that it's like sandpaper, right? And like, grit to me is sandpaper of the constantly trying to, you know, like herding cats, constantly trying to, you know, get the kids to stay in the right lane for the day. Get your clothes on, eat your, you know, brush your teeth, eat your breakfast. You know, put your shoes on, get out the door, get in the car, we're gonna be late. Picking them up, right? Like, you know, get in the car, stop fighting. I don't care what he said, you know, you know, just stop using that language, you know, doing all these things. Did you do your homework, right? All of those things. The moment you wake up to the, you know, the moment you go to sleep. All of that is sandpaper. And all of that is like the grit. And that's what I equate grit to. And I think that, you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, talking about it in these situations really helped me. And I think, you know, just sort of, as weird as it is, it's just like, you know, being okay with the fact that it's like, you know, like you, Thomas, like you were saying, it's gonna happen, right? Like, it's the more, and as you said it, the more you push as a parent, the more they're going to push as a kid, right? That's just.
That's psychology.
Yeah.
But that's the hard part, because like, and I struggle with this a lot. Is that like on the weekend I dress like this. This is who D is, right? But then when I go teach, it's a sport jacket and so forth. And I was called to give a presentation to the 7th and 8th, I think it was 6th and 7th graders at one of the schools. and I went dressed like this, but I hesitated because I'm like, they need to see a person looking like us in a sport coat for them to say, okay, you know what, I kind of like that, I'm exposed to that. But I knew that wasn't going to get through to them. You know what I'm saying? Because again, my son, who's in that grade, looks like this. You know what I'm saying? So like, I struggle with like, how do you still reach them and still be your authentic self? I guess. How do you still reach them but still be authentic?
Appreciate their, like Ishmael said. Or
Because it's like because I'm not, we're not their friends.
Yeah.
We're not, but we have to also understand that here's the reality. Although we raise our kids, they're gonna have their own personality.
Yeah.
They're gonna like different music. They might have a different style to them or whatever it might be. I think for us as parents to be able to be part of that journey allows open conversation when it comes to, man, I heard that song you were listening to, and what's all that about? And having that open conversation, because just like Derek was talking about, there comes a point when they're going to make the decisions they want to make, and sometimes it's not going to be the right decisions, but that's how we all learned, right? We had to make tough decisions. Well, we made the wrong decision to then learn. What I do, right? And I know my son's 9, but this is what I practice: is always making sure I'm creating a healthy, open line of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I see Noah make a decision, or if he says he made a mistake or he did this and did that, I know we can have a conversation about it, right? But also embracing the fact that our kid is not going to be just like us.
So my question for you, and this is also Derek as well, is that like when you just said, we talked about Warren G, that era, like we were able
G-Funk era.
Say again?
G-Funk era.
The G-Funk era. We were able to listen to that, but now that I'm older, I don't want my kids listening to that. Because at somehow at 11, 12, I don't think I was able to decipher real from fiction.
Yeah.
Up to an extent. You know what I'm saying? And like I think for my son and for that era, I don't think that's healthy stuff for them.
My youngest son is 14. He'll be 15 next week. So I'm kind of a little bit of the opposite of what you're doing. I let them listen to what they want to listen to. I really give them freedom when it comes to them, wanting to be themselves. They want to cut their hair a certain way, I'm all for it. You want to get a bar in your ear, I'm all for it. I'll take you to. I won't let them get tattoos. I won't let them get like a belly piercing or anything like that. But like, I've taken my daughters to get the industrial bar in her ear. I've let my daughter shave her head when she wanted to shave. Shave all the way around her head. I let them do that stuff. And the way I look at it as in, if this is what they want to do now, and I let them get it out their system now, they're not going to wild out as adults, because they got a lot of that out of their system now. In my youth, I was able to go out a lot. I was able to enjoy myself a lot. So therefore, as I got older, I didn't really care for it. Obviously as an adult, I did it later in life too. But even now, my kids listen to whatever music they listen to, and sometimes I'm telling them, what is that? That's crap. This is what I used to listen to, and I would play music for them. And even now, me and my son, for several weeks, we have a list of old school gangster / mobster movies that we are watching. Some of them are factual, based on
Bronx Tale, one of them?
Bronx Tale's on the list.
That's my movie right there.
Bronx Tale's on the list.
That's
So
my
that-
movie.
Gangster?
American Gangster, we already seen it. It's on the list. That was on the list, and I got a list on my Samsung Notes, and we check it off. We add movies to it and everything, and these are movies that may not be socially acceptable by other parents to watch, but I think it's good for him to see that, because that was a culture of something that was acceptable in that time. When you're watching New Jack City and Nino Brown was doing all this craziness back in 1989 or whenever that movie took place, that life was more similar to that.
But I don't think kids today can separate fiction from reality.
That's when we stand in.
Exactly. That's where we got to step in and have that conversation. To how Thomas said earlier, you got to open that dialogue with them, because my son understands that those are movies. And then even when we watched the Gotti movie, my son understands that was a time back then that's not happening now, and that was life in this era and everything. And
Well,
but it's just, showing him some history of stuff that may not have been very good for the world, but it was life, it happened, it's part of the history that occurred, and now it's part of the entertainment for us to watch, and the only thing I can do is counsel him, as in, this isn't anything we would do, but.
Right.
that's
Well,
what's
going back to
going
the
on.
music thing, like talking about the guns and drugs and stuff like that, like, for me, my thought process, because I know it's going to come with me, Noah turns 10 this year, and it's kind of blowing my mind, but,
Man, time flies.
it does, man, it's crazy. So, but, as simple as asking questions, man, it's just like, oh, he just talked about selling 2 bricks and a whatever, guns and all this stuff. What does that mean? You know what I mean? See how they interpret that. What does that mean for them? Oh, okay, well, just like being able to build a conversation around it, because when we talk about psychology, how a teenage brain, third stage of learning, is they are naturally going to do the opposite of what you're going to tell them, right? So instead of, and this is what I learned from a psychology video I was watching, is instead of telling them not to do something, it's, well, if that's the decision you're making, also understand what your consequences are. If you're going over your friend's house and sneaking out and going to a party and you get arrested, understand there's consequences to you going out and drinking with friends and doing this, so they understand and can make those decisions, right? But being able to communicate, also understand our kids have their own personality. They're not us, right? They're gonna be who they want to be. They're gonna make tough decisions, wrong decisions, and they gotta learn from them. And we can only save them to an extent. But the more sheltering we do, the more they're going to try to find any way possible to go out.
I guess in my perfect world, I want to be able to tell my kids, the stove is hot, please don't touch it.
Yeah.
But I know you have to touch the stove, because even for me, that's just the way it works. I had to touch it.
That
to figure
You
out
don't
it was
even
hot.
have to touch the stove to know that it's hot. You get close enough, you're gonna see it's hot.
Yeah.
But to listening to music like Rod Wave, I'd be more concerned about some of these child-looking like videos that are probably realistically talking about suicide, and it just looks like a kid's cartoon or something.
Yeah,
Some of these
yeah.
YouTube videos that are out there,
Yeah.
so I'm more concerned about that than I am about my kids listening to music. Or I'd be more I would rather my son listen to music that talks about guns than listening to music abusing drugs.
I think it's to
And it
that
all
point.
just needs to be something we conversated about.
Yeah, it's for anybody who's in any conversation with somebody who's third gen, right? Like who has grandkids or is old enough to have grandkids. The conversation.
I feel like I'm being attacked.
the feedback that I've received when I'm just like venting about just trying to herd these cats is that it is just different now, and it's the accessibility to information for kids and their ability and their adaptability to technology and whatever info that they want. Like their curiosity can be itched in half a millisecond, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so because all of these things, the music, the videos, the YouTube, because a lot of these algorithms are geared towards the 30-second, 60-second,
Which
and
is what their
90-second
time span is.
yeah,
Yes.
it's hard to catch some of this stuff, right? And so in general, that itself is draining, right? Like, and I understand it's easy enough to like. I feel that I do a good job monitoring what's going on. I feel that I do a good enough job, and it's easy. I could sit here and just say, you know what, I'm just gonna turn it. You don't get it, like turn it off. But then, in all actuality, the kid can get ostracized, right? Because we all know how it feels to not be part of the conversation, especially at that age, right? So it's like if I'm the reason that I cut my kid off from having the connection with their peers because of me, that's not something, I can't sit with that. There are
But
things.
aren't you supposed to? Yeah, but we're our job is to protect them.
Absolutely. Protect. I think protect and shelter are two different things. And I can't sit here and say that I don't try to shelter, because I do. Because I'm in line with you. That's my personality. But I know it's not right. You know, so I do what I can to protect. I try my best not to shelter. And me and my wife have this conversation all the time. Do we shelter our kids too much? We probably do. And, you know, is to your, like, those experiences, they have to be had. Regardless of they have to be had. Our kids have to have certain experiences in order to get them, you know, to be alive. You know what I mean? And
Character.
yeah, to build character, you know, to be well versed, you know, to how to handle opposite, because the difference between my wife and I, even for certain situations, it's pretty stark between my father and parents who were more on the sheltered side of parenting versus her parents who have that mentality but weren't as, you know, on top of her and what she was doing, right? And the two of us as parents and as adults and how we maneuver through the world, her level for adapting to stressful situations comes a lot more naturally. I've gotten better over the years, but I was a bleep show, you know, if something didn't go my way, like initially. And I've had to learn how to roll with the punches, where she has just a more natural affect to just, you know, to be that calm sense and, you know, just sort of, you know, understanding how to maneuver through the world.
Well, I think kids naturally look at mom and dad differently. You know what I'm saying? Like, my kids know when I come through the door, like, sometimes they say dad's in a grumpy mood, or why dad, what did dad do? But they run to mom before they run to dad first.
Yes.
You know, and I don't know if that's always right. You know what I'm saying? Because mom is more coddling and more gentle, whereas dad is like, this is what we're going to do. I'm not sure if you guys are the same way. You know what I'm saying? Like, but maybe that's the way it's designed. I don't know. You know, but I just know that like dealing with that is that grit stuff that I see every day. I'm like, I'm saying, I'm trying to understand it and get through it without it causing an issue. You know?
I deal with a little bit of the opposite. So in your household, you guys all live together.
Yeah.
And everything. And in my household, my children live with me, and then their mothers. Well, granted they're a lot older now, but their mothers live elsewhere. Right?
See, I gotta be even harder.
So yeah, to a point. But a lot of times my kids do come to me, and even on times where they're with their mother, they might come ask me something, and sometimes I'm like, well, aren't you with your mother at that time? You need to ask your mother.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll answer and be like, well, yeah, I'm fine with it, but you gotta talk to your mom and everything. And then sometimes mom is more like, you gotta talk to your dad, because I'll say, I'm more of them letting be creative, more creatively free, or, you know, letting them, I let them spread their wings a little more, because I believe in that. If I let them live their life now, they become more adults and everything. Instead of not letting them do anything, have such a tight rein on them that when they're finally free and adults, they go crazy.
It's a challenge, man. It's a huge challenge.
Nah, it's easy. Raising kids is easy.
Yeah,
Super
just follow the
easy.
blueprint.
Yeah.
Just follow the blueprint.
You wrote it.
Well, you guys, I don't think the question should be, what is grit? It's just how do you slow the grit down? Grit ain't never gonna end.
Never gonna end.
It's never going to end. I got a 19-year-old daughter, my youngest one. Talk about grit. What an attitude. Try to buy her new tires. She wants them all. She don't want just two. Attitude. And it's a fight. And like you said, you know, she's 19. No, she's 20 now. Go ahead. You're an adult. You want to do it. But as far as protection, we don't protect our kids. We shield them with a blanket of protection. And then when they go outside that blanket, that's when we gotta try to pull them back in, but it's hard.
It's hard.
We can't protect our kids one by one, or even ourselves.
And what makes it harder now? Social media. You know, like we talked about this weeks ago, like social media, society. That stuff makes it harder. You know
The
what I'm
grit's
saying?
it's never going to end. It never. And I was thinking about this. Trying to talk much. It's not going to end. You know, even with ourselves. Forget our kids. Not forget our kids. Think about
Yeah.
ourselves first. ourselves, the grit's never gonna, listen, I've been grinding for 52 years. I'm grinding even more these last 2 years. It's not, and then sometimes I think our grit rubs off on our kids,
Yeah, I can see that.
you know?
Yeah, I
You
can
know,
see
someone might be, can't pay a bill one day. Like, shit, or, excuse me, wow, what's going on? And it lets you down.
Yeah.
And you don't really wanna play ball with your kid.
The emotional intelligence
You know?
aspect, you know what I'm saying?
You know,
Pushing it off on our kids.
That blanket of protection that we give them all their lives, they're not gonna be with us all our lives. But prior to that, they wanna test the waters. And it's up to us as a parent, whether we let them test the waters, or we go and first test it for them and then have them come in with us. There's no sure solution for that. At a young age, yeah, I think I'm what, at least 5 or 10 years older than everyone here, I think. You know, I'll be 53 in July.
20.
Way different.
I'll be 45 this year.
Listen, I'm talking about wearing clothes. 12 years old, you wore what your parents bought you.
Yeah, yeah.
There was no going down to Foot Locker getting to no. 16 or 17 maybe, not at 12. And still a lot of kids come into the barber shop and they tell their parents, oh, I want my hair cut this way. No. When you get enough money to do it, go ahead and do it. And the protection that we have in that blanket, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna protect them as much as I can, as much as that blanket don't have no holes.
So how do we understand what you just said, Jerika? I think you summed it up awesomely. How do we do that? How do we, I think Thomas, you said open communication. But how do we do that every single day, but still allowing them to have to be their authentic self? How do we do that?
With the bit by bit, one problem at a time with the music. Dante, listen, well, man, hey, you want mad at me? You want to listen to that music while you're around me or in my house. You want to listen to it outside, and I catch you outside, we're gonna have a problem. You know, he's gonna either say yes or no, and that's where they try to discover underneath that protection of that blanket. And sometimes they have to do it, but you got to be firm as a parent too. You can be loving as a friend, but you can be firm as a parent. Say, hey, listen, and with the girls, females, daughters, no, you ain't talking to that dude. Let me talk to the dude first. Matter of fact, let me talk to his parents first. That's how you keep them underneath that blanket, but they're going to go. I mean, like I said, my youngest one is 20. I got 4 grandkids. You know, and I'm not past that elevation of saying I'm a perfect parent. No, I wasn't whatsoever. And neither were my parents or their parents. There's not going to be no such thing. But that grit, it shouldn't be what is grit. It's just either how do we slow it down or how do we ride with it. It's just,
I've been like this since Noah was 2 at the park trying to jump off a big thing at the park. Noah sometimes thinks he knows the answer. So, and I know that's going to come more and more as he gets older. So what I have a lot of patience for is just, you know the answer, go ahead. Go ahead. For me, I'm okay with letting Noah going and failing. Because when he fails and he has nowhere to turn or know what to do, he's gonna come back, right? So I think in how I would handle it is, one, always open line of communication. I mean, it speaks for itself now. Noah knows we have a strict routine when we get home. Just yesterday, he's freaking out. He comes over, felt comfortable enough to tell me, I forgot my homework. And he knows that when he forgets things at school, that's something that's unacceptable, right? That's his responsibility. But he felt comfortable enough to communicate that with me. It wasn't through fear. He didn't feel fearful of doing that. So it's open line of communication for me. And then also, to your point, it's allowing them to be the person that they want to be. They have to explore certain things. They're going to want to try this. They're going to want to try that. They're going to cut their hair and be like, oh, shoot, I do not like this. I don't want to do this again. As parents, it's natural that we want to keep our kids safe, but there's going to be a point, right, with the little bird in the nest. They got to have to fall and they got to have to figure it out. And that's, in my journey, I had to figure it out a lot, but it allowed me to build character. So I was just having a conversation with Noah yesterday. I was like, you know what? You're going to have to figure that out, right? Because sometimes they need to be challenged mentally to figure out whatever they're in. Because it builds character. It builds character, it's critical thinking, and when it comes to a time where they don't know what to do, and they're on their last thread. We've created the healthy line of communication. They feel safe enough to come back and be like, man, Dad, I don't know what I'm doing. I messed up. I made a bad decision, right? And having that conversation about which direction do we need to go in. You know, that's how I look at it. That's how I have worked with Noah, and it's worked great.
I think to piggyback off of that, you know, the need for them to figure things out on their own is part of our responsibility, is to prepare them for the real world. You know, we're not going to be around forever, and I feel studies show the more, and you know, it's common sense, but it's still worth repeating. The more I shelter, the more the kids are sheltered, they're not going to be as successful on their own, and we're going to create, you know, an anxious kid if we swoop in to figure out all their problems, right? They're going to expect that in the real world, and whether it's school, whether it's a job, whether it's, you know, starting to become adults themselves, we haven't prepared them to figure things out, right? And so that's another reason why I'm always, you know, trying to make sure I have an easier time of saying figure it out, because it's just easier, right? Like, I don't have to do anything if I'm like figure it out. But in all honesty, you know, most of it is rooted in, dude, like, you gotta figure it out. Like, this is something, and that's, you know, depending on what it is, will be my level of involvement, right? Avery's 7, he's gonna be 8. Brooklyn's 10. She'll be at 11 in a couple months. And so, you know, what I try to do is make a decision at that time. You know, how much do I get involved? Whether it's, no, I'm not, like, I'm not, no, don't come to me. I don't want to hear anything until you have thought about it and figured it out. If I see genuine effort, I'm all in, right? Like, then my focus becomes directly on them, but I want to see the effort. I want to see the focus, because to your point, I have no problem with failing. I have no problem with falling on your face and then turning around being like, I can't do it. Cool, you tried, that's all I wanted. Now let's figure it out together.
Man, this time went by quick. Run out of time. Right now we're hitting the 35-minute mark of the video. Just want to say appreciate you guys tuning in. Anybody have any final thoughts they would like to add to the episode?
There's no blueprint. We're doing the best we can.
We're trying to write one as we go. Right?
Try not to be petty. I would say there's a lot of talk. What you were saying, it's really, when they think they know everything, it's really hard not to be petty.
Man.
I
am super petty. I'm toxic like that. I'm petty. But I'm working on it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on episode number
9.
9. Take care, everybody. Thank you.